appropriate time. Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment that I'm offering is quite simple and very straightforward. Mr. Chairman, at a time when we spend more on the military than the next 9 nations combined, at a time when the Pentagon failed its 7th financial audit in a row and cannot account for trillions of dollars in assets. I mean, even in Washington, $1 trillion is a lot of money. At a time of massive fraud, waste, and cost overruns at the Department of Defense, this amendment says that no, we should not be giving the Pentagon an additional $150 billion. Mr. Chairman, as you well know, we already spend close to $1 trillion a year on the military. And if some people think it is important to build more ships or develop more air and missile defense systems, there is more than enough money to do that within the existing Pentagon budget. They do not need another $150 billion. But Mr. Chairman, don't take my word for it. I will give you the feelings of some people you might pay more attention to than me. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, vowed to cut the bloated Pentagon budget. He said, quote, "Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in fraud and abuse." End of quote. Well, that's not Bernie Sanders, that is Donald Trump. And I know that on the other side of the aisle, we take what Mr. Trump says very, very seriously. Mike Waltz, President Trump's national security advisor, recently told NBC, quote, "The American people have said enough. Enough with the bloat and the waste and the debt. We do need to go in there and absolutely reform the Pentagon's acquisition process." Last but not least, my good friend Elon Musk, who is currently running the United States government. And what Mr. Musk says is that the Pentagon has little, quote, "has little idea how its annual budget of more than $800 billion is spent." Mr. Musk, let's talk about the waste. I know, I would hope, I was a mayor and we went after waste and there was a lot of it and there's waste in the federal government. I think no one denies that. But if you're going to talk about waste in the federal government, don't just go after what goes on in programs that impact working people. Take a hard look at what the military-industrial complex is doing. Fiscal year 2022, Navy auditors found $4.4 billion in untracked inventory. Well, they simply lost $4 billion. Let's talk about fraud. In recent years, major defense contractors have paid many billions of dollars in fines or related settlements for fraud or misconduct. In October, Raytheon was fined $950 million for inflating bills, lying about costs, and paying bribes to secure foreign business. In June, Lockheed Martin was fined $70 million for overcharging the Navy for aircraft parts. Let's talk about cost overruns. No, I trust that you're sincere. We want a cost-effective government. I trust nobody here wants to see waste. But how can you talk about spending another $150 billion when you got the largest agency in the country full of waste and fraud? Cost overruns. The F-35, the most expensive weapon system in history, has run up hundreds of billions of dollars in cost overruns, et cetera, et cetera. So, my friends, and I say this very sincerely because I trust that all of us want to deal with waste and fraud and a bloated bureaucracy. But if you're going to do that, the first area you look at is a bloated defense budget, and the idea of adding $150 billion more makes 0 sense to me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Very quickly, it makes a lot of sense to me in this regard. These wars in Ukraine and Russia, the Ukraine-Russian war, has been a wake-up call. We ran out of 155 rounds. what would happen if Taiwan went hot tomorrow? So we need to re-energize our military industrial base. We've been shipping stuff to Israel. They're under siege on 7 fronts. What I've learned from these conflicts, that America needs to increase its military industrial capability. We need to be smarter. Drones seem to be fashionable. To my friends from Virginia, y'all are great Navy guys. We got 296 ships. At the end of the decade, we're going to have 297. China's got 450. We need more ships. So that's going to take more money, but we will look at cutting waste in the Pentagon.
Mr. Chairman, can I just briefly respond?
Yeah, just a second.
Look,
I will.
we can argue, and I'm not an expert on this, what the military needs, okay? But before you add more money, why don't you get rid of the waste and the fraud? Let them get rid of that.
Because, right, if I may reclaim a time,
Yeah.
because we're in multiple wars. We're at war. ISIS is reemerging. So the technology we need to keep them over there so they can't get here. We need to help allies that have been under a lot of strain. We're at 2.9% of GDP on defense in 2025. That's the lowest we've been in decades, at a time when I think the threats would justify more spending. I appreciate you. You're consistent. We have a different view of what it takes to defend America. You're right about waste. But I am telling you, half the budget is personnel cost. Does anybody here want to change the personnel? Do we want to pay people less, give them less benefits? So really half the budget is locked in with personnel costs. I think we need more capability. We need it now. That's why we're doing $150 billion. I oppose the amendment. Time has expired. Next will be Senator